Hey everybody, Charlie Stevens here. Thank you so much for joining me for another guitar lesson. Today we're going to learn the E natural minor scale in open position. So recently we learned the G major scale in open position. Okay, and so really this is pretty much the same thing. So E minor and G major are relatives of each other, and that means they share all of the same notes. Those two scales have the exact same note. It just sort of depends on where we start and stop. That really helps them sound like a different thing. Also, different chords and musical context really will play a big role in that. But for now, a way to understand it is just sort of where it starts and stops. But it will use the exact same notes. We can actually see a bit of E minor in here actually. If we just look at from E, this E that we had when we played in G, we had an E in there. And then when we kept going, we did 2 octaves, we had another E in there. So why don't we do this? Why don't we just see what happens when we start on E to E? So we'll start on this one. The next one in our scale was F sharp, so that's here. The next one was G, A, B, C, D, and back to E. That is an E minor scale. A 1-octave version of it. Okay, let's start on this E and go backwards and see what happens. E, backwards if we were still thinking of this as if it were in the G major scale. Oh, so I had a D and then the E. So I'm going to go backwards from E to D. Before that I had C, then I had B, then I had A, then I had G. But I have to keep going now. So what happened before G? A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, then G. Oh, so I need an F sharp now. Well, there's one here below the G we played, and then even below that we know there's an E. Right, so that's one way of doing that, realizing that it's really the same thing as G, the fingering is, but we've added 2 extra notes now. We went a little bit lower than G, to the F sharp, to E. Now if I start here, and I end there, it sounds like E minor. If I keep going from this E to that E, that sounds like E minor too. So that's it. That's the complete 2-octave version of E minor. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and play that together here. We're going to do it just like we did in the G major video. We're going to play all of our E notes as half notes and then quarter notes for all the rest of our notes. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going a bit fast in this video because I'm expecting you to already know the G from a previous video, right? But I do have some tab for this and the neck diagrams for this one as well to help you out. So if I'm going too fast, just take your time with those materials. But I did want you to realize if you've done your homework on this G, we really just added these 2 notes down here. And then actually we subtracted these 2 notes from up here just now because we did not go all the way up here. But that's what I'd like to talk about next though, actually, because it's okay to go up here too sometimes. And that's what we would really call a position. So I would call this a 2-octave scale because I stopped at the 2nd octave. But if I wanted to just play my entire position, I can reach as far as this. This counts as in position. This does not. because I'd have to shift up, and that would change me out of each finger getting its fret like this. So this would be a little bit out of position. I might still get it if I needed it, but I wouldn't consider it in position. I would consider it stopping here, which is where we stop for G anyway. So if we start like we're doing G, we go back 2 frets to the open string, and then we go through G all the way up here. Is it E minor or is it G? Doesn't really matter actually. This whole zone is great for either one. So if we're playing an E minor chord, it's going to really sound like E when we play all those notes, even though I went up to this G. Okay, it still sounds like E because of the context. Okay, now let's see what happens if I play G chord stuff. Still sounded pretty like G, even though I went all the way down to this low E. So the context is really what makes the difference, and that's the more advanced thing to understand. But for now, you can just kind of learn where these notes are at, and it's cool because it's a freebie for both scales. The G open position and the E minor open position are the same thing. You can put your fingers in the same places, basically. That's really why I recommend doing it where we have the longer notes on the root, so that way we sort of learn where the important notes are, and that way when we're using G, we know where the important notes of G are. When we're using E, we know what the important notes of E are. Okay? And another way you can think about this E position is how we're allowed to go up here. Well, this is the reason I did that other video about how to do an E minor on a single string, because we can see those notes are in there anyway. If we were to start here, we would just keep going like that. So please check out that video if you haven't seen that already. We talk about the formula that gives you a natural minor scale, and we looked at how to play that on a few of our open strings. So that's why we can keep going up to these notes here. But this would be out of position if I kept going, which sometimes is considered sort of not allowed when you're practicing, because you set these parameters for yourself to really know that you can stay within a position and understand the position. So that can be good. But when we're actually improvising and playing music in a real life situation, we're definitely not limited to certain positions. We're definitely allowed to move in and out of them as we desire or need to, based on the musical needs. So I want to show you an advanced way to do this now. Okay, so now that if you've watched the video on how to do the E minor on one string, and you've watched this video on how to get over to your E this way, we can actually do a 3-octave scale, which is pretty advanced. But I mean, I was thinking about it, and it's also pretty simple, because when you think about it, in this lesson, all we really learned how to do was to add 2 extra notes. But if you've been watching all the other lessons and you already knew how to do G up to here, and then you watched that other lesson where we did the E minor on one string, then you already learned that part. So really all we're doing is adding 2 notes and putting those 2 concepts together. So I don't really think it's too difficult in a certain way of thinking, but it sort of is also. This is considered advanced stuff. I didn't even really know that there were 3-octave scales for a while into my playing. So I don't really think there's ever a perfect way to teach in a perfect order. I see logical paths from certain information leading to other logical paths. Sometimes I think of what beginner stuff is based on like the order that I happen to learn it. But I don't know if that's always necessarily the case. So on this channel, I'm really trying to kind of put it in a comprehensive method, but I don't think there is any right or wrong way to go. It's sort of a messy process. You start learning about this, and you can't really learn all the way about it because you haven't learned about this other thing over here. So then you start learning about this, but you can't really quite learn all of those concepts and totally grasp them without learning about this third thing over here. And then you can't really totally grasp this third thing over here without first learning more about this first thing, and then you're going, what the heck? So it sort of sounds a little bit tedious when you put it that way, but it's not really tedious. It's over time, and it can be fun. So, you're going to want to learn kind of a lot of different things at the same time, and the more you learn, the more it will help your other areas as well. So basically take this next part with a grain of salt, because it is sort of considered a lot more advanced. So if you're a beginner on your guitar journey, you don't need to go all the way up here just to play in E natural minor scale. But why not, right? It's pretty cool. So if you're following me and you're hip to adding these two low notes, and then you're hip to going through G. By the way, I can do it with this fingering, just like when we did in G major. We had an alternate fingering like this. I can do that with E minor, the exact same thing, but I add this finger. Still have to switch back for this one, which is why it's still okay to use the pinky instead and use this fingering. But sometimes you might want to use this one. And then we get this kind of cool little pattern here with our two strong fingers. We get to use two strong fingers for this hard note too. Okay, so just a little side thing that, if you're watching my fingers, I might not be using them consistently the same way every time because there are different options and I'm not really thinking about it at the moment. I'm just kind of playing. So if you got that down, you can keep going through your scale all the way here. When we get to the open string, we're going to pretend we're playing the E open string minor scale, just like we did with this mirrored fingering we learned. I think that's pretty cool. Gets us moving around the neck. This is great practice for learning the notes on your E string. Also, notice how we ran out of strings. We were able to stay in position, as I was calling it, right? And then we're supposed to stop here if we're staying in position. Which is cool, but sometimes we're going to want to get up there too. Now, should we have gone up earlier on like maybe this string? Could have done that actually, but then I just hung out in this position. So a ton of different ways to do this, okay? But my point is, learning how to go up and down on the first string is pretty cool, because by then I've run out of strings. I don't have to go like this when I can go like this. See how that's closer in position? So therefore I can go, just do different things that wouldn't really be able to do if I was just going on one string. And, one string has its advantages that it can do things that the positions can't do too. So this isn't like, one's better, one's worse. They're just different. We need to be aware of that, right? But anyhow, I don't need to travel up the neck to do that. I can travel across the neck, if you will, this way, right? Once I get here, I can no longer have that option. So if I want to keep going, I gotta just know that one string, right? So it's important to do this on all your different strings. The more advanced you get, you'll want to know all this stuff, but really checking out how to move in this direction once you get to the higher strings, I think is more practical, because we have other ways to kind of get around in our other positions. But once we work our way up here, it's time to move. Not always the best way to do it. Sometimes we can think a little ahead and we can kind of move and do a little here, finally end up here, something like that. So, but again, now we're getting into really advanced guitar stuff, because then we'd have to already know where all these positions are to have that make a lot of sense. We'd say, oh yeah, I'm in this one, now I'm in this one, which I recognize from my study of position playing, now I'm in this other one. Okay, so we don't need to know that for just one string. And we're just checking out our open position stuff right now. So, yeah, I hope you have a lot of fun checking that out. E minor is a really kind of great sound for the guitar. Lots of open strings. lots of fun to be had with this stuff. Okay, so don't worry too much about the whole 3-octave thing and everything. Really, I want you to memorize this shape. And really kind of burn that in your brain. Also, you can be working on your single string knowledge and eventually tie those together, but don't feel pressured to play it all the way up to here necessarily, unless you're looking for that challenge. And if you are, good luck, have fun. Thank you so much for watching this lesson. I look forward to seeing you again in another guitar lesson really soon. Have a good one.